Hey there, and welcome to Destination I Do's podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Stein. If you don't have weather on your radar, pun intended, for your destination wedding, you should. And I am joined by a very, very wonderful expert guest, Andrew Leavitt from Ironic Reports. And he is going to talk to us about rain on your wedding day, but not if you plan ahead, right? So, welcome to the podcast, Andrew. I'm so happy to have you on. I'd love for you, if you wouldn't mind, to just give us a little bit of a backstory of you and Ironic Reports, and then I'm going to go into some questions.
Of course. Thank you for having me. First off, I mean, it's we were just catching up beforehand. It's fun to do these. That's the best way of saying it. It's especially fun to get the idea of managing weather expectations out into the wedding industry. Because for years it was I've got six apps open and I'm freaked out, or like the bartender has like a bad knee and it hurts when it's going to rain, and it's that was kind of your like standard practice. So my background is actually I came from the concert and music industry. So for God, well, before that, I should say, I originally started in the wedding and bar mitzvah world as a DJ with like a very bad button cover and tuxedo vest and the whole thing. And I left that after college or high school college and joined concert touring. So I was touring for the better half of my 20s. And when you do concerts, a lot of people don't know this, but there are normally meteorologists behind the scenes. And the example that I have been using now, because I feel like it resonates the most, is Taylor Swift, where
Mhm.
everyone saw on the Eras tour she was out there playing on stage in the rain, and they think, "Oh man, that is risky. That's crazy that she's doing this. She's going for it," and it is all of that. But there also is a meteorologist behind the stage and in a production office tucked away, who's on site basically tracking, make sure there's no lightning within 8 miles. Because if there's lightning within 8 miles, it's time to evacuate the stadium. So they are in full communication with the production manager, and then in through her in-ears, Taylor knows it's safe to be on stage. So I was working on that sort of level of concert for a very long time and worked with meteorologists and became, I'd say, like dangerously good amateur meteorologist. Um, and was doing that for until the pandemic. And then when the pandemic happened, there is a like clean version and a real version of how
Give us
ironic.
the real version always.
The real version is I was at my friend's wedding in June 2019 before the pandemic. Had been doing these festivals and working with meteorologists for like 10 years at this point, knew enough to see what was coming. And some rain was pushing over Newport Harbor in Rhode Island. And the wedding planner was super green. And it was a really nice venue and was like running around like crazy, freaking out, freaking everyone else out around them. And I was made the joke to a bridesmaid, like, hey, I just looked at the radar. It's going to be 30 minutes. We're going to get like a quick downpour, summer storm. It's going to be scattered. It's going to move out. Like, we're good to go. Just wait 30 minutes and like let the bride and the planner know. And I was told like so quickly, like, you're drunk, have another sip of your drink, sit down and like shut up and hang out with all the rest of the groomsmen. And I was like, cool, that's where I'm going to go. And I am terrified of my friend Brenna to this day, but she put me in my place and I didn't say a thing. We moved the wedding inside. And of course, 30 minutes that it takes to move from what would have been outside overlooking the harbor and like the lighthouse and everything. We were in like Wedding Hall C, which was an unconditioned or an unair conditioned room in this middle of June with giant windows facing the sun all day. And by the time that everyone was walking down the aisle, it was perfect outside. There was a rainbow. It was like you couldn't have asked for better conditions. The only issue is like the seat cushions would have been wet. There would have been, some grass stuck to people's shoes, but it wouldn't have been the end of the world. So the clean version of how we started Ironic, which I normally try to say on podcast, is that I, in a moment of brilliance, realized that when the music industry shut down, the only legal events that were happening outside were weddings. So I reached out to all the meteorologists who I knew just not lost their jobs, but lost their work. And basically said, hey, what are you guys up to? Do you want to go cover weddings with me? I'm going to reach out to a bunch of wedding planners and a bunch of couples and see if we can help out and support these because they have to be outside. It's the only legal way it can work. And I first reached out to couple planners from Boston where I'd grown up. Brian Raffinelli from Raffinelli Events was a friend of a friend. So I was able to get in touch with Brian and really kind of pitched our services. And this was like the following year where everything was going crazy and, everything is now like in full swing. And he was nice enough to be like, yeah, I've got 6 events next month. If you don't mess up any of them, you're in. And we did six like in a row. And it just kind of brought us into this luxury, premium luxury. There's 1,000 different titles that I win every week about the wedding market.
Yeah.
Um, but we got brought into the wedding industry, and I came from the side of the event industry where we were dirty, like covered in like festival dust, production managers, building out like 40,000 person festivals and worrying more about the fact that we had to evacuate a festival site because of lightning, versus we have to make sure that, we are not damaging the grass because we've got someone's private estate and this is a backyard or it's this beautiful venue or a museum where you have to really think about all the different conditions and how that will affect the load-ins and the load-outs and the actual event days.
Yeah.
So it's been a very weird world to get to where we are today, but it's been a blast because got to learn a lot.
We were together at a an event called Engage in Pennsylvania, and the entire thing was outside in a gigantic tent. There was probably what 500, 600 people in this
Yeah,
giant tent in the middle of a field, beautiful property called Nemacolin in Pennsylvania. And I'll never forget this because I had to go inside for, well, first we were supposed to have like a segment of the conference outside. And then all of a sudden, because of you and your weather reporting, and you're like, hey, there's a weather system coming in. It's rain, it's wind, it's all the things. Not great for a tent, right? And all of a sudden, all of this, the group I was with, we were doing like a media event. We had to go inside into like an actual, building structure. And you were able to like figure out immediately how to get everyone into like a safe place. And not that anyone was in like any real danger at the moment, but when you've got people in high heels and, suits and beautiful clothing, and you're trying to get them into, from a rainy tent into a building, they came through with like umbrellas and did this whole umbrella parade so no one got wet. And that was, I understand, entirely because of what you were
yeah,
able to kind of see coming and help the event producers, just make sure that everything went off without a hitch, despite Mother Nature just giving everyone the proverbial finger.
yeah. I think that the proverbial finger is the best way to describe that day. I find that day like very fun now. In the moment,
Not
and
fun.
for the people who are listening, Engage is, in my opinion, the best event throughout the year for me to go to, and probably for a lot of people, where it is wedding planners planning a wedding industry event. So from start to finish, it is luxury touches on every single corner. And when I go on vacation, like as myself now, I can't help but compare it to like the places I get to go with Engage and how it's all done. And biggest part of that is that for every minute of every day, there is a different outfit change, there is a different look. And that was before that, it was a tea party. So everyone was in white linen,
Hmm.
sunny day. And we had started tracking that morning. My team was, we actively track all of the Engage events. So from wherever they are, we have one in England coming up, Mallorca, and we track all of those remote. But this one, the ones that I'm at, it's always like that extra feeling of like, I hope this,
Pressure. Yeah.
if I mess this up, this is going to be bad.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where I reached out to the team and basically said, like, where are we looking today? And in the summer months, everyone's kind of in the Northeast is really used to this, where you have these pop-up showers and they're not widespread. It's not the end of the world. It's just a ton of humidity and a ton of heat and a ton of moisture, and it's all going to mix together and just drop rain for about 30 minutes. And we were tracking it. And the best thing about these is sometimes they'll miss you completely. And you'll be like
Mhm.
a mile away and you'll see it and you'll just like, oh, that could have been us. This hit us directly on.
Yeah.
And I reached out to Catherine and Rebecca, who are the founders, and I basically walked over. I was like, "Here's the deal. It's coming. We're about to go to a switch to media hour. We need, and we have about 45 minutes to come up with a game plan." And Nemacolin was one of the best venues to do this with because they had already gone above and beyond with every bit of the.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And their first reaction was, well, we're going to escort everyone with golf carts. And that way we can just have them go for golf carts. And then they really realized quickly, like, well, the golf carts are open. We've never taken sprinter buses on these back roads of the golf course. And they said, let's just try that. So all of a sudden you've got what was a row of golf carts. I like turned around and I looked back and is now a row of black sprinter like vans stationed there. And then the conversation came with the planning team. Well, how do we get from point A to point B? How do we get from out here in the vans? And the most amazing thing happened. It was that they called, I want to say like it's probably 20 to 25 individual people who I assume raided the golf shop to get
Yeah.
every umbrella that like was in the storage room. And they made, we were calling it the gauntlet. And it was basically a covered run that people would have to do in white linen to get from inside to in the vans. And there are people that we have photos of that I have seen smile like once or twice, but I've never seen like give that like you're a little kid smile and you're just having fun. But when people were running through the gauntlet, like smiling teeth to teeth, just wide open and having the time of their life. And like it turned into this moment of they offered like pure hospitality, which is they had thought of everything that could be an issue on site, and then they had made it fun and turned it into like this moment and a memory. And then, of course, the capturing with the camera and all this, it turned into like some of the best photos that people were posting from that event.
Yeah.
And on my end, I was sitting there just thinking, like, thank God they jumped on this because you have a lot of different factors. There was lightning that was pushing through. It could have been the wind speeds were manageable, so the tent was rated at over 60 miles, and the tents were and the winds were only gusts were only getting to around 40. It could have been one of those situations where you just didn't feel safe, and those tend to, and we run into this a lot with our weddings. We try to think about it as like, what's your level of risk? So we have
Yeah.
some clients that their level of risk is if it drizzles, we're doing a full tent, sidewalls, flooring, and if there's even a chance that there's water, we're out.
Right.
Uh, and then there are other people that say like that sort of situation where they look at it and they're like, oh, as long as we have a good game plan on how to handle this when the time comes to handle it, we're gonna have fun with it. And
Yeah.
that was one of those like special moments.
Yeah.
Absolutely terrifying. I was in the back corner, like sitting on the ground, and I was with a friend who writes she's an editor, and she ended up doing a piece later on, and she's like, I don't want to misquote it, but it was like as Andrew like crunches over like on the ground, seated while everyone else is inside, and I'm just like, yeah, it probably looks like I was crazy. I was like watching this kind of be like, this is gonna be bad.
Yeah. Well, you saved the day because I saw the photos. I was actually already inside because I was part of the media group. And I just saw so many great, like you said, people just smiling because they realize like this is just fun. This is just, they're taken care of. They're not gonna, take some soggy walk in their white linen outfits, through the mud. They're totally well taken care of. And that is in part because of your ability to kind of foresee what was happening, but also the event producers taking your intel and saying, what do we do? How do we problem solve this? And at Destination I Do, one of the biggest things we talk about is making sure you have a wedding planner, that you have a plan, that you have a team behind you that you can trust that is going to take care of things. So, one of my first questions is, can you kind of explain how understanding weather trends can kind of safeguard your event if you can't control the weather? So, how does understanding the weather trends going to help you?
So it's I love that you say that you can't control the weather because that's something that I surprisingly have to explain to people on a regular basis, including people who assume that's what we actually do. And I'm like, no, no, I don't know where that got mix up came from. Um, but for us, really, what it comes down to is if you look at climatology, which we can start with first, which is historical weather data and the climate around us, climatology is best described as your personality. And then meteorology, which is what's happening on site, is best described as your mood. So you as a person and me as a person can be like great people all around. And we have amazing personalities and we are like the
And then
center.
we get hangry.
That hangry moment is your summer storm. It's your thunder storm rolling through on a great day or on the event. So a lot of what we like to do with our clients as before the planning process really starts and the venue's chosen, we'll have clients that will reach out to us and say, we love the Hamptons. Like we're a New York family. We love the Hamptons. We also love Hudson Valley, but we also have family friends that have this beautiful place in Charleston that they want to let us come down and use their property for. And we don't know where to get married and what time of year it should be. So for us, we look at the last 30 years of weather data. And I know we can jump into it a little later, but with climate change, you have to kind of look at 30 years of weather data with realistic expectations of what is happening now
Yeah.
because outlier situations are becoming more prevalent.
Hmm.
Um, so we look at those and we think about things that for someone that is a diehard person that wants to make sure their hair is down and they are going to have this haircut that they've wanted their entire life and the styling just perfect because they found the stylist that they love, but the wind speed is going to be 15 to 20 miles an hour sustained, so consistent, and 25 to 30-mile-an-hour gusts at that time of year on this, part of the Hamptons, that might not be the best place for your photos. And
Yeah.
you need to think about that. Versus if you're looking at something like Hudson Valley and you find a beautiful property that happens to be at the base of the valley overlooking the water, that could be amazing. But if we know that it rains 5 out of 7 days of that week, and that ground tends to get flooded, are you then want to be walking down the aisle and it's going to be muddy?
Yeah.
And these are the types of things that you can reduce the risk and sort of mitigate against early enough on. And that really for us is a big part of it is figuring out ways that we can explain what the personality of the venue will be at a certain time of year and how you can kind of, avoid the mood swings, we'll call it that.
I like the mood swings. I think that's like a really good way, a great analogy to kind of make sense of it all because, we are seeing things like Hurricane Helene, where, you're in Asheville, which I actually have personal experience because we were there when the hurricane hit. And it was like people don't realize that the ground was already saturated. And a normal hurricane, like it usually doesn't make it that far in as far as, and here we have these mood swings that you're talking about that can really change things. So let's talk about shoulder season for a minute because I know, especially for destination wedding couples, and especially in today's economic climate, a lot of couples are like, well, it looks like peak season is from here to here, and that means peak pricing. So let's look at shoulder season.
Sneak it in.
Yeah, so it offers better pricing and fewer crowds. However, there can oftentimes be weather risks associated with that, or maybe not even weather risks, but just like you're talking about where, the ground gets really saturated. Like in Colorado, shoulder season is usually mud season, where everything is brown and dry and like nothing has started growing yet, and everything is muddy because, you had a bunch of snow melt. So it's not a great time to do a wedding in, the Rocky Mountains. So, how seriously should people consider looking at weather patterns and things like that when they're choosing non-peak wedding dates?
I like suggest it to everyone, and I don't mean that lightly because I think there's a lot of people that are like, "Oh, this is what I sell. I'm going to tell everyone about it." But it's easy data to find, and you can go like
Yeah.
the easy entry route, which is you can pick up a farmer's almanac at your grocery store and do a little research that way. You could do the like middle grounds where a lot of people are now using AI to ask the questions, and there are right ways and wrong ways to ask it, because obviously AI will kick back different answers. And but if you're really concerned about certain aspects of it, for us, we do our climatology reports. My partner Jack, he's the meteorology side of Ironic. He basically sits down and he does handwritten reports. And for a lot of our clients, they like to basically look at one document that flows through over the last, 30 years. This is what's happened. Give me some graphs, give me some images, give me bullet points and explain it to me, and we're done.
Hmm.
And I think that a lot of venues are now getting to the point where they're trying to open up inventory, as you're describing, and they're trying to find these little, like, the extra 2 weeks on the end. And it shouldn't be misleading because they are offering great properties and everything that is in-house for them is probably perfectly fine. So if you're looking at, say, somewhere in the Caribbean and you're thinking, okay, well, we know that we're on the back end of hurricane season or it's about to go out, it's going to be warm enough to go in the pool, it's going to be great, but there is a chance that wind speeds are going to be just a tad bit higher than they were. So if you're planning on getting married on the beach right out in that beautiful sunset, but all of a sudden your altar and everything else is flying around in the wind and you're worried about that, that's a real concern.
Hmm.
So it always comes down to weather with, I think, infrastructure. which I feel like people do not relate on a large scale. And the infrastructure being for the venues that you're choosing, make sure that they understand that they've now opened up, but what is kind of like on the outlier or outside of their property. So if it's the mud, does that mean that the roads are going to be rough to get up there? If you're trying to get and sneak in something on the earlier side of the winter, well, what happens when the roads freeze over and ice over? Is that going to be an issue for travel and guests coming in? So you have to kind of like go to the, if you're looking at your event, obviously most people do it at like 100 feet off the ground. You have to go to the 10,000 feet and kind of look at the surrounding area. And we are seeing a lot more, volatile weather. I think that's the best way of saying it. Tornadoes this year, there's been more tornadoes earlier this season than ever before. I think we're like, or I should say not ever before, because I think it's the third highest in tracked history. And these tornadoes are very serious. There, one was an E3 and there were deaths.
Yeah.
So weather doesn't always remember it's your wedding. The weather is also thinking about like it's creating the energy and it's releasing the energy in a way that if you're in the path of it, it could be very serious. So a lot of people need to choose like which path do they want to be on? Where do you want to position yourself? Is it worth saving the extra, you know, 10% on the venue because you're going a little bit of the off peak? It might be,
It
but
might be.
also
Yeah.
it's, do you want to just stick to the peak time and then you might have to deal with a couple extra tourists walking through the background of your photos and things like that.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And you think about also that plan B, right? Like the fact that I don't care when your wedding is. I don't care if it is like peak season and everything says it's sunny. You always, always, always want a plan B. Just because then you have, temperature control or, let's say it's not raining, but it's windy. And wind, in my opinion, can oftentimes be more destructive than rain. So it's like you want to make sure you always have that plan B.
100%. I feel like it's funny you say that about wind. I agree fully. People always talk about rain and they're like, oh, well,
Mhm.
if it's gonna rain, we've already probably moved inside, we've already put the tents up, but you're already fine. Like we've handled that because we saw it 3 or 4 days ahead of time that there was enough information to say there's a very, very good likelihood that you will have rain at this at your venue.
Yeah.
Wind, people like hear 15 miles an hour and they're
You
like, oh,
don't really think what that means.
that seems like
It's faster than you think.
yeah. And then all of a sudden it's like, we got a call. How do we get what's the wind speed? Our escort cars are flying and we were in Palm
Mhm.
Desert,
Yeah.
or Palm Springs. And I just remember being like, yeah, this is the time of year. Like this is when those winds pick up at 7 o'clock at night and push through the evening. And
Yeah.
the winds are gonna be real all night. And then it's okay, decor is flying. We've got to figure out hair is blowing in the wind. Like there's a lot of little challenges. I relate that one about the hair blowing in the wind is like if someone wants to wear their hair down, I mentioned it before, but like all of a sudden putting your hair up could be an hour spent on Pinterest figuring out how you want your hair to be up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that hour then shifts.
Probably longer if we're going to be honest. Probably longer than an hour. An hour is the, oh crap, I have an hour and that's all I've got, right?
And then all of a sudden, the timeline shifted an hour and food is being held and it all compounds.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so with the shoulder seasons, or I would say think about things what really matters and what your level of risk is. And if you are comfortable with the idea that we know it might be a little bit more windy, we know that there's a chance that it could be cause a couple more travel delays, those are things that you got to take into effect. I hope and I think most venues do this. They know what their venues are like if someone's been there long enough that they would not sell someone on a time of year that would not be right for them. So it's really just about the little like annoyance that will pop up into your life and how you
Yeah.
want to play those out.
Yeah, for sure. I know that NOAA, the NOAA, has predicted a potentially much more active hurricane season this year. And like you were talking about, tornadoes are already showing up more and more aggressive. And like, what does that mean for popular destinations like the Caribbean, Mexico, Southern U.S.? And what should people do to prepare if they are in that hurricane season, shoulder, whatever?
It's really interesting. Noah, I can't like speak more highly about the people that work at Noah,
Yeah.
because Noah is built off of a lot of young like meteorologists who are working their way up the ranks of where they, get to where they want to be. And most people think meteorologists, they think like TV personality doing the show. These are the kids that are going out there at 4 in the morning and releasing weather balloons. They're tracking data. They're putting all those data points back into the system. Uh, we'll say before there were budget cuts this year to NOAA, there was 6.4 billion data points being collected every single day. So if you think about that, that's about just the amount of information possible for it to collect. And then they're with hurricanes, they're even flying planes into the storms to basically track where they'll go and when they'll go and how they'll move. So when NOAA is predicting things like that, one of the first things I always tell people is make sure that you're not in the path of the potential risks. I'm an idiot, and I moved from New York, where I was out of the path of potential risks, and moved to New Orleans, where I am directly
Oh,
in the
you're
path.
right there. Yeah.
But this goes back to the infrastructure thing where New Orleans has a $4 billion pump system. And this was built after Katrina. It came in and it was, we are going to make sure that this city is going to be able to handle whatever storm comes its way. Uh, Speaking of infrastructure, you look at New York and you look at some of the last times that we've had big storms moving up, and everyone will laugh when they see the video of like every New Yorker standing on pallets in the subway, trying to like step over the subway water, which is probably the most disgusting water I think
Gross.
could be around. But the infrastructure in New York is not built for the hurricanes.
Yeah.
So when it comes to choosing your venue or being prepared, or if you're in South Florida or a place that understands it, most of those places, as bad as the hurricanes will be, and they can be devastating and loss of homes, houses, we've all seen
Yeah.
sort of what plays out. Um, your venue will know and your planner will know, and everyone, if you're not from there, has had that experience, and it's part of ingrained in their system.
Yeah.
Uh, the real trick is when you describe Asheville. That's a situation where the storm is now getting more volatile and it's moving up, and people do not understand what
Mm-mm.
could happen or what the infrastructure is like. And that's really where you want to be tracking yourself. I always tell people turn NOAA alerts on. It takes people 5 seconds to go to NOAA and to go to their website and actually see all of the information and hear all the reports. It's not fun reading. It's dry as it can be. But it's there. And think about the biggest thing to think about is on an average day, you have sustained winds at 10 miles an hour. So that means that the rain that you might be seeing was 240 miles away at the same time yesterday. And it was, 480 miles away the day before. When it comes to hurricanes, you're looking at winds that could be 50 to 60 to 150 miles an hour. So doing a little bit of math and figuring out, well, this is what's happening in South Florida today. Where is that going to be in 4 days if I'm having a wedding in Charleston? And really looking at like what's the path, what's the direction. And I'm not here to freak anyone out. But those are the types of things that we kind of stand on our soapbox saying over and over again, it's not what you see outside. And my clients who are listening will hate me when I say this. The worst text message you can send me is when I say, hey, we have an imminent storm. It is 25 miles out, heading your direction. And then I get a text back that says, it's beautiful right now. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm aware. I said 25 miles. Like,
Right.
give it a minute. And then I get this frantic text saying, oh my God, it just opened up and it's like the worst thing in the world. And it's like, yeah, well, it was always heading your way.
Yeah.
So for anyone planning, especially in the destination world, start thinking about looking at that 10,000 feet out. What is for and what's this going to do and how it's going to affect all of your infrastructure on site.
So when you're talking about that 10,000 feet, that kind of leads into my next question. So what does that look like, planning a year out, a month out, a week out when it comes to weather? Like, are you, before you even choose your date, you're looking at what the typical weather patterns are in that time frame, and then as you get, you base your,
Slowly get closer
and
and
then okay.
so we start with the climatology reports, the historical, the personality. You can look at the personality of a place, 2 years in advance, and it's going to give you enough of the information. At no point should you be like, oh, it says that it rains every day at 3 o'clock here, because, except for maybe South Florida in the summer.
Yeah.
But for most places, what you're going to see is how often that week it rains. So 4 out of 7 days. If it rains 1 out of 7 days, if it rains 1 out of 365. And like there are places we were in Canary Islands for another event where it rains 2 days out of a year. Happened to be the 2 days we were there for a wedding conference. And you can try your best, but you still have to
Yeah.
understand that things can change. When you get to the month before, that climatology report is still your really best option. So for basically almost 2 years, you can use that single source of data to really plan and adjust. Um, Everyone sees 14-day, 15-day, 16-day, like as many days in a row forecast online. The truth is, we always try to explain to people, those then mix climatology and meteorology together. So 7 days out is the earliest you should possibly ever look at the forecast.
Okay.
Clients will reach out and they do, and they're like, "Hey, it's 9 days out. What's going to happen?" I'm like, "Cool, yeah, I'll check back in
2
2 days."
days. Yeah.
They're like, "I hate you," but I'm like, "It's just not. I can freak you out right now, but you're already freaked out. So let's just like come back in 2 days, and we'll go from
Yeah.
there." When you get to 7 to really 5 days out, you're kind of in that like 70 to 75% accuracy, maybe 80, depends where you are. And that is the point where you're starting to see all of the other things surrounding and happening in the world, and that could shift over. And this storm over here in Ohio can mix with this storm that's in DC, and now all of a sudden this is what's going to happen in Hudson, New York. So you're starting to get all the mixing, I guess, happening, and the data collection. And then 5 to 3 days out, you're kind of hitting that 85 and above, or a little bit around there. And now you're saying, okay, well, we know that there's going to be rain at 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. We're not sure exactly which flight this path is going to take, which travel it's going to be, or is it going to be a widespread storm because it's so visible? And then when you get to like 3 days in, that's when you can start saying, okay, between 2 and 7 p.m., we know that we're going to get heavy rain.
Mhm.
And that's the moment. But and this might be a question I forget if you're going to ask, but I like have to say because it's top of mind. The biggest issue I have with the weather apps is that people go and they look at that data and it will say there's a 80 to 90 or 100% chance of rain happening on Saturday, but they won't look and say, no, it's happening at 3 to 4 in the morning on Saturday.
Right.
Your wedding is at 5 p.m.
You're
It will,
fine.
you're
Yeah.
fine.
You're
Yeah.
fine. No reason to panic. Yeah.
But when you look at your phone and you see that 100%, everyone like freaks out and then texts everyone. And like
Yeah.
that's versus like clicking and just doing that little extra research to say, oh no, that's literally not even going to be an issue. Or the worst is it's 100% chance of drizzle. And that is my favorite when I like have to explain that there's 100%. I'll get a text and I'm like, it's 100% chance of like trace amounts of moisture in the air.
Right.
You are
You're
going to be
fine. Yeah.
dead.
I do think too, people kind of freak out. Like, for example, Kauai. It's a rainforest. There's probably going to be rain on the forecast like every day, but it's usually just a quick little, because it's a rainforest. Like that's literally what it is. So, I do think that there is, calmer heads prevail, as they say. And yeah, yeah.
Well, and a big part of that too is when you're getting data from the apps or you're getting your information from wherever you are getting it in a broadcast level. The weather apps in my mind have not changed since the first app store or weather app. And what happened was a bunch of executives realized, hey, we've been selling advertisement space in between the weather reports on our
Uh-huh.
local channel every single night. And for that, we're just going to tell people the county that they're in or the area they're in, but it's going to be very wide. And we're just going to say 60% chance that this county is going to see rain. And that will give people enough that they'll keep checking back in. And we're going to run with that
Yeah.
forever.
Yeah.
All of the weather apps come out and everyone says for the first time, like, take my zip code, take my information. I want you to pinpoint me. And the weather apps, for the most part, did the same thing where they said, okay, perfect. But instead of pinpointing you, we're going to show you that we've pinpointed you. But to play it safe, we're still going to give this giant map feature. And then we're going to basically tell you that there's still that 60% chance. And then we'll give you a radar and it will be this cool design thing. You'll feel really confident about that.
Yeah.
But it's not enough. So what happens is a lot of people will see the radar and they'll try to pretend that they are now a meteorologist. And I did this for years.
Like my husband, he uses his radar app all the time, and he'll be like, "We've got 5 minutes to seek shelter." We'll be like
It's
camping. I'm like, "How are you even getting this information? We're in the middle of nowhere."
it's so bad. Well, it's funny because I like am so guilty of it. And like it's the reason that Ironic came out is because I was guilty of doing that at my friend's wedding. And it is some of these apps are great at showing you the visuals, but what they'll forget to do is like leave off the fact that, there's a ton of lightning. So people will say like, oh, it's just a little bit of rain, but you didn't have the lightning filter on. And now you realize, oh no, we're in like a torrential
Yeah,
downpour.
this is dangerous now. We need to go inside. Yeah. Yeah.
So I always try to tell people like limit your time on your weather apps. It's only going to stress you out.
Hmm.
Check 3 days before the wedding to make your rain plan call. If you see something that says there's a 70% chance of, a quarter to a half of inch of rain, that seems like a great time to make a rain plan call. Like
Yeah.
that is
Yeah.
prime. That's most likely going to happen. Everything's leading it. It's all indicating it. If you see that it's going to be a drizzle at 4 p.m. and your ceremony's at 5, go out to the store, make sure you get some tarps and some wraps, cover the cushions, and just plan ahead.
Yeah.
Uh, those are the types of things that shamelessly plugging a great company, whether or not out of Colorado. I think they're like the best business model because they're just an umbrella rental company for weddings. And I'm like, they send I think it's like a couple days out before the event. And I'm like, yeah, people aren't going to change the entire event and they don't want to have to spend $10,000 on umbrellas. So like,
No. Well, in Colorado too, I mean, the weather can shift in. My parents live in Evergreen, and which is in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains. And let me tell you, it's like the weather apps are like it is to your point. It can look like one thing, and then you're like, oh my gosh, like you feel the shift in the weather, and it's like on you in 10 seconds, and it can be a lot of, these massive thunderstorms with lightning and, a lot of rain and I almost said perspiration.
uh,
You know what I mean?
also could cause perspiration. There's a lot
It
of things.
could. Yes, it would cause me perspiration if I were the couple getting married. Okay, I'm going to take a quick commercial break, and when we get back, we're going to continue this conversation with Andrew Leavitt, and hang tight. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for the perfect vendors to help you perfect your wedding away? Well, look no further than DestinationIDo.com. From our homepage, simply click Find a Vendor, choose your vendor type in your destination, and hit Go. From there, you can view the vendors available to you, learn a little bit more about them, view their past work, or even go directly to their website. So you can take the guesswork out of finding your perfect vendors. Go to DestinationIDo.com/vendors.
And we're back with Andrew Leavitt from Ironic Reports, and we are talking all about weather and how it can impact your destination wedding. So I would like to talk about, this is getting like kind of a little more scientific, I guess, but can you share examples of destinations that have like surprising microclimates or weather quirks that couples might not anticipate from a Google search?
Yeah, so I think, well, first off, it's fun. I'm just going to go to the list of places we don't won't work. I think that is like the best.
Perfect. Start there. That's a great list.
If you are in not even a microclimate, but the Yucatan Peninsula is a real tricky one because there isn't enough radar and weather
Mm,
collection. So it's always going to have that type of jungle vibe and rain that pushes its way through, but you can't see it. And
mm,
that is an issue.
yeah.
Anguilla is another place that the radars just don't quite reach there. So there are places that have these sort of blind spots to weather detection services. And when you have these blind spots, that's where people kind of think that they're more, oh, this is just like their microclimate, their quirk. When it comes to microclimates itself, my favorite thing is that people will say, especially venues, like, you could never tell me what the weather is at my venue. It's its own microclimate, this and this, and we'll tell you. I'm like, it's just the weather that was 60 miles away, 60, an hour ago. Um, but when you're thinking about places like Colorado, there are a lot more storms that will get stalled out over the mountains. So
Hmm.
sometimes you'll have things that will get stalled out on the East Coast and not drop as hard. But in the mountains, you'll have, like we described, those quick rolling moments where you have these storms come in. And then there are also good microclimate situations, and one of those would be on the coastline. A lot of people obviously get worried that the coastline is everything's going to push in and push out. But you'll have places in South Carolina that the wind is going to push the storms and keep it off of the actually coming to land. So if like Palmetto Bluff is an area where you can have rain, but you can also have rain just on the water and it's holding it steady, and you're actually having this great, amazing venue location. Obviously, Florida is Florida. I just say that, and I apologize for everyone that lives there and deals with the 4 p.m. showers every day. It's just what it is. You're gonna have that.
Yeah.
But the more intense and future of climate change thing that I'm just starting to notice is I'm now describing to a lot of our clients in the Northeast that just assume you're in South Florida, because every day we're now getting between 12 o'clock and 7 o'clock these little pop-up showers. And it's turning into a pattern that's more recognizable on the East Coast
Mhm.
in summer months, especially we're in a heat wave right now. So you do have different places have their own little unique challenges. Palm Springs, you're always going to deal with weather right after, or wind right after sunset. It's like they all have their unique kind of characteristics that you have to
Yeah.
follow.
Yeah. Are there places that you feel are becoming, with all this climate change, less viable for like outdoor weddings, or on the flip side of that, more viable?
So I will say that I'm going to offend everyone from my home, from Boston, where I grew up. The weirdest thing, like it's pure climate change. What's happening right now is the Gulf of Maine is warming up almost faster than any other part of the Atlantic, the ocean. And what you're now having is more storms are following the path up the East Coast and bringing heavier rain because they're basically following the water. It's going towards more creating more energy off of the East Coast. So places like Martha's Vineyard, Nantucket, places obviously the Hamptons, parts of Connecticut, where have been seen as like tranquil summer days, and it looks like a Ralph Lauren ad,
Yeah.
are now becoming, more risky for actual severe weather coming up there and really working their way into these areas. So that is an area that I'm consistently watching, and also I work a lot with clients who live in that area, and we're now kind of on guard a little bit more about how we're approaching these ones, because it's not that like summer humidity that yeah, I remember when I'm 35. I remember when I was a kid that is there. It's like now almost, I think New York was going to reach over 103 degrees this week,
Oh my
and
God, it's so hot. I can't even imagine.
it's turning into this whole thing.
Awful.
So again, and I'm not trying to be the thumper on climate change, because I feel like everyone's heard it before. We all understand, but it's just infrastructure changes. Like I hate to say, we missed a lot of the we missed the mark, and
Yeah.
now it's structure changes.
Yeah. Let's talk for a second about mindset, because listener, we don't want to like send you into a full scale panic about your weather. Chances are, I mean, usually there's more nice days than not nice days, right? So, let's put it all in perspective. However, safety never takes a holiday, so we're here for that. That's part of the reason we're having this conversation. But how can couples kind of emotionally prepare for the unpredictability of weather, like while still embracing the magic of a destination wedding? Do you feel like there's certain things they can like set it and forget it, like, just having their wedding planner, having someone who's going to work with a company like you, like what are the things that they can do to prepare?
The first thing I would say, like right off the bat, is when someone like me says that there is a 10% chance of rain, that means there's a 90% chance it's not going to rain. So
Yeah.
like the way
Yes.
that we talk
Yeah.
about it, and you will feel great. We joke we do not put our meteorologists directly on the phone with planners, because if we put them directly on the phone without a middle person, they would be like, the best chance for storms is going to be right during your ceremony time, and they're like excited for the storm.
Right.
Uh, so we try to always like, it's about how it's worded. Um, it's I think really what it comes down to is it's the mindset of we've had weddings that have had torrential downpours. And I will follow up with, there was one that was in New York that will like always stick out. It made it to Vogue. It was one of those weddings that like it was perfectly planned, and if it was sunny, it would have been a perfect sunny wedding. But the photos were like water going down the outside of a window, and a woman in a dress in a stairwell, like staircase of an old colonial home, and everything was just perfect, even then when it was that. And I
Mhm.
remember talking to the planner after, and she shared a text message from the client. The client was like, I think the rain made it more magical because it was something we were all a part of.
Yeah.
I've never had a client, and I will knock on wood and everything else in between. that after the wedding and they say I do and the ceremony happens has ever been like, oh, that the weather ruined it for us. It's always still like it was that moment, it was that magic, that was just part of it. And I think there's probably like I think like a like jokingly say like a drunk family member could ruin a wedding.
Oh
But
yeah.
the weather isn't going to be the thing that can like ruin it. It can definitely make you a little stressed out in the beginning. But once you're on site, people tend to get more comfortable with it.
Mhm.
Severe weather, obviously, in that sense that if, there could be damages and things like that. But for the most part, it's really if it's just going to be some rain that comes in, it's a quick pivot, but people are still really happy with what happened. And then for us too, we also have this weird thing where if we're seeing rain coming and a rain plan is being made and people are kind of going through this, and then the last minute, the storm takes a turn or whatever it could be, and we're kind of talking saying, okay, well, we're still a day out. We don't need to do this rain plan. We can get away with this out here. People are just so like thankful, like, oh, it didn't rain. It's great feeling, and all of a sudden it feels better. So like you can't lose that hope because
Yeah.
as good as you can forecast, there's always still that risk, or I call it risk, but everyone else would call it like grace or whatever it would be, that it will just turn a mile and go to the side. So
Yeah.
like keeping up the optimism is a big part of it.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you so much, Andrew. I just so appreciate your time, your expertise. I love that a wonderful business was created because of the pandemic. If you think about it, it kind of was, on the heels of that. So thank you for what you do. Listener, if you want to follow Ironic Reports for more, go to ironicreports.com online, or you can also follow them on Instagram at Ironic Reports. And then for Destination I Do, our handle, it's at Destination I Do. Our website is destinationido.com. Please follow, subscribe, rate the podcast, email us if you have show ideas at info@destinationido.com. This will all be in the show notes. And thank you so much, Andrew. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me. This was a blast. I'm happy to share this with everyone and all of your listeners.
Awesome. Thank you. We'll see you guys next time.